Okay guys, real quick, I just want to mention something here. Now you can buy these, they're about $14 a bottle in Calgary here, if you can find them. You can probably find them cheaper online, but they're about 14 bucks a bottle. I've seen them as high as $18 a bottle, if you can imagine. What you can do is pick up tubes of oil paint, matching the colors, for about the same price. Now you could probably make 30 or 40 bottles out of each one of these tubes cut down, maybe even more. So this is a much more economical way of doing things. You know what, if you want to pick these up first and experiment with them, and then go ahead and find these and then just make your own with some low odor or odorless paint thinner. Boom, saving a lot of money right there, guys. Okay, so we're still waiting for some of the my last filter to dry on the running gear. So what I'm going to do is just add some very subtle, very small rust streaks. And to do that, I'm using the I'm not even going to take a run at pronouncing this. If you guys know how to say it, great. I'm not even going to. It's Mig's oil colors, and I've got 60 and 80, light rust brown and wash brown. And we've just put a little bit on a piece of shop towel here, and we'll get ourselves in this case I'm using a Tamiya very fine brush and a little bit of odorless thinner. So what we want to do is what we're going to do is take these chip marks here, where it's where I'm showing some chipping, and I want to show some more concentrated rust streaks. So we just hit that spot and we bring it down, just to show that it's going to do a little bit of, we've got some rust on there. Now what you can do here, you can actually put the color down and bring it down, and then you can take a larger brush, you can wet it down with a little bit thinner or just leave it dry, and just bring these streaks down to make them look like we've got a little bit of rust streaking on them. Now the word here, guys, is subtle. Very subtle. And see, you just put the little spot on, and you bring your brush dry, and you just bring it down like that, and boom, Bob's your uncle, you got a rust streak. Now for my eyes, this could be a little bit too red, so we can just take a little bit of the dark wash brown and then just drag it down like this. Use a sharp pointed brush like this. This is a Citadel large brush, and then if you really want to feather it out, you get a larger flat brush like this, and then just kind of bring it down. So you see, we went from something like, I didn't like that one, so we just basically, we're just gonna take that out, and we've just got a very subtle hint of a streak now. You can go back with the dark wash, and we can actually bring it a little bit bigger like that. Now we're definitely going to want to seal these in before we do any more, because the streaks like this are almost your last step in the weathering process. After this, we're going to go for mud and dust on the lower running gear. But for now, we're just going to put these down and bring them down like this. Just remember, guys, have a backstory. I kind of talk about this a lot, of explaining your models, put your models in context. Like I've never, maybe maybe something that, you know, if you're not doing, like, I would have a hard time explaining this if I was putting it into a context of World War II. War ended in April 45, and I'm doing a kit like this because it's just, it takes time for nature to develop this kind of a rust and patina. It just doesn't happen overnight on real vehicles. And I know a lot of model builders look at heavy industrial equipment for their on how they do their weathering, which is awesome. But remember, that heavy duty industrial equipment's probably been working for years and years. I mean, I know of some companies that have cats and hose and heavy equipment that are 30 years old, and most of them don't go in for paint jobs. So yeah, you can have heavy equipment that looks just absolutely thrashed. That's because it's been out there for 10, 20, 30 years. Put in context, this type of paint distress on a German tank that's seen a couple of weeks service, maybe not. But anyway, this is more of an artistic light experiment anyway versus a historical representation of a tiger. All right, I'm going to finish this up, and more later. Okay, so what we've got now is we've got some Mig Pigments. In this case, we're starting with Russian Earth. A little bit of odorless thinner. We're just going to mix it up in a palette, and we are using a very big, fat, thick brush, and just a little dowel or something like this, and we're just going to flick the running gear. Instead of using a mud, like a thick paste mud, we're going to do more of a splash technique. And it looks awfully black now, because that's what Russian Earth will dry a little bit lighter, but we are going to do this in layers. We're going to start with the darkest layer, and then we're going to work up to a dark mud, and then just a Gulf War sand, just to give it a little more depth. The darker colors will represent a wetter mud, and of course as it dries it will lighten up. So the lighter stuff will be higher up on the tank, and the dark stuff will be a little bit lower where it hasn't quite dried yet. So let's see, let's get this into position here. I am not doing such a very good job here, guys. Sorry, this is kind of tough. Let me just lower this down a bit. Hang on. Okay, that's better. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking this and just flicking it. Just use a fairly light hand. What I want to do is just show splashed mud, splashed dirty water. I don't want to get into heavy mud, but more of just a show that this has gone through some wet, muddy, greasy water. So anybody that lives in climates where you have winter and snow and muck and dirty vehicles, you know exactly what I'm going for here. Like I say, this is going to be either the spring or the fall, so I can really get pretty heavy with this flicking technique, especially in the back where the and this is messy, so it's a very sloppy, messy technique. It gets everywhere, so make sure that you have a cloth and you clean your workspace up and go from there. Okay, that's going to be it for the Russian Earth, and we'll flip over here to another color. Okay, so now we're going to change it up a bit. Instead of using odorless thinner, we're going to kick over to good old Tamiya X20 thinner. I don't want to have a oil-based thinner on top of an oil-based thinner. So now we've got a light. Now we've got dark mud on here, and we're just going to use the same flicking motion as we did before, but we will have, of course, a different tone, different color on there. It's like, well, gee, Gloucester, all your work on the running gear is getting, yeah, it is getting kind of lost. But when you look at real running gear, it's usually just a big muck fest. So once again, we just do the same thing. And with the Tamiya thinner, it actually, you get a finer mist. The droplets aren't as heavy and aren't as big as you do an odorless thinner. Why that is, I have no idea. That's science. I don't know. But I just find that the Tamiya thinner stuff goes on finer. So let me finish up the rest of it here and we'll take a look at it. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to take some of this P241 brown and some wet effects, which is basically just a clear varnish, a clear gloss enamel. I'm just going to pop some in this into our paint tray, mix it up, and I just want to kind of tie in all this multi-colored colors on the running gear to give it a look of wet, that it is actually in a wet area, and because this is going to be on a mucky, muddy road in the spring of 45. So basically we just want to get all of our running gear and the bottoms of our tracks. Now this hasn't had any other clear coats or anything on it, but it's had a couple of weeks to set up. So you can also do that on the outside of the tracks if you want. I'm not going to do that right now, but I'm just showing you guys another little trick to getting the running gear done, just to tie everything in so that all looks finished and it all belongs together. Also slop a little bit on here like this, just to give it a little bit of look of wet splashed up onto the running gear. Don't overdo it, guys. Subtle, a little less is always usually better than too much. And then what you can do is you can take the same shade, the same color that we're using here, and use it in your ground cover when you actually do a diorama, and use this as the color of the soil or the terrain that this tank is on, so everything kind of ties together here. And it's just that simple, guys. Now you can throw a little bit back up here, one like that in each one. Now you could also do this with an acrylic, but acrylic doesn't quite run the same as an oil base, as an enamel does. And if you want to have a little bit more shine, make it look like it's a little wetter, well, you know what? Just take your wet effects and just go over it really lightly, and it'll give you a little bit more of a realistic look. A little on the bottoms, and then you can go in your tracks, and there you go, guys. A heavily weathered King Tiger 2. Thanks for watching.